Sawadee-kap. Hello and welcome to Daily Wisdom, Walking the Path with the Buddha. Today is our group learning program, and we're going to be studying the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths is where you can establish right view to understanding what it is that's causing the discontent feelings in the mind. Because what the Buddha is teaching you as part of the path to enlightenment is how to eliminate all your discontent feelings, where you can get to the point where you no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. But how could you ever eliminate any of these feelings if you didn't understand what's causing it? So the very first teaching of the Buddha is the Four Noble Truths. In four simple statements, you can understand what is the problem in the mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. So I'd like to welcome all of you, whether you're joining for the first time or you're joining regularly, and at the same time invite you to join for meditation, because I'm going to start class with meditation, where I'm going to do some chanting to ease into the meditation. It's going to help to get more benefit out of the meditation itself if you decide to do the chanting. Then I'm going to guide you in a meditation session, but then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. Then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting, and then that's where I'll start today's class, helping you to understand the Four Noble Truths in a way that you can independently verify them for yourself. So if you'd like to join for meditation, you might pull up a meditation cushion or whatever it is that you normally use for meditation. I'm going to start with this chanting. You guys are welcome to join in. Then I'll come back in with the guidance afterwards. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Putang Mahakawanang Apiwateyami Sawakato Mahakawata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakawa Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาโพตังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิจาจารณังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโอโตภาควาติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys here. Welcome to everyone who's joining online as well. As I was sharing, today's our group learning program where each Sunday I go chapter by chapter in this book, helping students to be able to understand the path to enlightenment. And today we're actually in chapter 4, which is titled The Four Noble Truths, Establishing Right View. This is the very first teaching of the Buddha, where you can understand in 4 simple statements what is the problem that he discovered in the mind, the cause of that problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. Because in order to be able to get to enlightenment, you need to be able to understand what it is that's causing all of these discontent feelings. By the time you get to enlightenment, you don't experience anger, sadness, frustration, and all those other discontent feelings. But in this particular teaching, the very first teaching that he shares with all of his brand new students, he helps you to be able to penetrate into this, to be able to see what's actually causing your discontent feelings. So I'm going to share this with you guys, and at different times I'm going to open up for questions to let you guys ask any and all questions that you like. For those of you guys that have been studying with me for a little while, this will be a nice refresher for you. Even if you were in this group learning program at the beginning, you know that I shared the Four Noble Truths at the very beginning. But for those of you guys that have been recently joining and studying with me, this might be your first time actually learning these teachings. And you can actually have a breakthrough here today, where you can actually once and for all understand what's causing all your discontent feelings. Because oftentimes the mind thinks it's the outside world. You might think it's your mom and dad or your brothers and sisters or other people like this that are causing you to experience anger, sadness, frustration, and other feelings. But it's actually your own mind that's causing this. And I'm going to teach it to you in a way that you can independently verify. So when we get to the point where it's time to ask questions, whether you're in Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, if you would like to ask questions, you can put that into the comment section and I'll be able to see that. If you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and ask any and all questions that you like. Here at the temple, we have microphones, and if you guys could use the microphones, then all you need to do is press the gray button, and then you'll see the lights come on. And if you hold this up to your chin, we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll hear you online as well. So in order to understand the Four Noble Truths, you need to first understand the three universal truths. We refer to these as truths because the Buddha knew that they were true, and I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true. But in order for you to gain the benefit out of the three universal truths and the Four Noble Truths, you need to know that it's true. This is why you're not interested in believing any of the teachings, because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. So what the Buddha teaches you to do is listen with eager ears, where you're actively learning his teachings. If you're just sitting back and kind of letting the teachings roll over your head, then you're not actually going to be able to actively learn them and then apply them in your day-to-day life, because you need to learn them, reflect on them to verify them, and then to practice them. And that's what's going to actually help you, is to be able to listen with eager ears. So I'm going to start with this first universal truth, helping you to be able to understand what this is as a building block for the Four Noble Truths. Remember, what the Buddha is doing is he's teaching you the way the world is. He's not teaching you the way the world should be. He's teaching you the way the world is. And in this first universal truth, he's teaching you the way the world is, that it's full of impermanence, that there's constant change in the world, that things are going to arise, they're going to change, and then they're going to fade away. This is called conditioned objects. Anything that you can see, hear, smell, taste, anything that comes in contact with the body, or any thoughts or ideas that go through the mind, it is all impermanent. It's constantly changing, meaning it is not permanent. So this is conditioned objects. But then there's things called unconditioned objects. Unconditioned objects do not arise, they do not change, and they do not fade away. Enlightenment is an unconditioned object, that once your mind is enlightened, it's a permanent mental state. And the same thing with the natural laws that the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago. These are also unconditioned objects. They don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. They are permanent. This is why the Buddha's teachings are timeless, that what he taught 2,500 years ago is just as applicable today as it was 2,500 years ago, because those natural laws haven't changed. So this is a little bit of the intellectual understanding of this universal truth. But you can't believe this. You need to be able to independently verify it. So now you move it into reflection, and you look to the world around you to be able to see if you can independently verify whether the world is actually impermanent, the way that is described in this universal truth. And what I suggest you do is you start with something that you're familiar with, like this human body. You can ask yourself, is this body permanent, meaning it's exactly the same and it's never changed, or is this body impermanent, meaning it's constantly changing? So what would you say? Is this body permanent or impermanent? Of course, right? It's impermanent. It's constantly changing. Ever since the egg and the sperm came together, that things have been constantly changing. We get taller, we get shorter, we get bigger, we get smaller, right? We get pimples and moles and freckles and wrinkles and gray hair. Our teeth grow in, then they fall out, then they grow in again. This is constant change. What about your relationships? Are your relationships permanent, meaning you've had exactly the same people in your life, your entire life? Or are your relationships impermanent, meaning that there's people coming and going in and out of your life your entire life? Would you say they're permanent or impermanent? Yeah, so people are coming and going in and out of your life, right? So they're impermanent, right? What about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It goes up and down and up and down. Some people's goes up, up, up. Some people's goes down, down, down. So what about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? So we could go on and on and on and on here, right? And if that's what you need to do, it would be wise for you to do that, is walk around the world and try to see if you can find something that is permanent. So when you're walking down the street and you see a crack in the sidewalk, That's impermanence. When you look at a tree and you see green leaves in the tree and brown leaves on the ground, that's impermanence. That's change. There are certain wood planks on the floor of the temple that are longer or shorter or different colors and different texture. This is impermanence. This is constant change. So you need to be able to deeply soak this into the mind that you can see the world around you is constantly changing. And this is a building block that's going to help you to understand the Four Noble Truths when we get to it. Then the second universal truth is called discontentedness. Some people use the word suffering here. If you've studied the teachings of the Buddha in other places, you might have heard this word being used. But I don't use this word because it doesn't accurately reflect what the Buddha was teaching on this important topic. So I'm going to share with you what the Buddha taught on this important topic, and then I'll circle back and share with you why I don't use the word suffering. So the word that I use is discontent, discontented, and discontentedness. What the Buddha is doing here is he's sharing with you that the unenlightened mind is going to experience conditioned feelings of pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant feelings. What a conditioned feeling is where it's based on some condition, you're then going to experience a feeling. So for example, if you wake up in the morning and you see it's sunny outside and you get really happy and excited about that, that's a conditioned pleasant feeling. That based on the condition that there's the sun, the mind's going to be happy, excited, elated, thrill, euphoria, or some other pleasant feeling. But then the problem with that is that because your happiness was based on a condition, that condition is not permanent. So that means when that condition changes, now your mind is experiencing a painful feeling. This is why some people get frustrated or angry when it's raining. And that's why you haven't been able to get to permanent happiness, because the mind is basing its inner feelings on some impermanent condition. So the painful feelings are anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, and things like this. Then you've got neither painful nor pleasant feelings. I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say that that's very painful for them, so you could put that in the painful category if you like. But shyness is a good example, where it's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Or if you were sitting on public transportation and somebody came and sat really close to you and your body was touching their body, you might say it's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's neither painful nor pleasant. Okay, so these are the three feelings that the Buddha is describing the unenlightened mind has. Pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. And these are conditioned feelings that based on a condition, the mind is then going to experience a certain feeling. So the way that you independently verify this is because if this is a universal truth, you should be able to verify it on your own, because you know your mind is unenlightened, and you can ask yourself, is all the feelings that you experience, do they actually fit into one of these three categories? And if you think that there's a feeling that you experience that doesn't fit in to one of these three categories, just let me know at the question time and I will be able to help you. So what an unenlightened being will do is they will wake up in the morning and they will be really happy and excited because it's sunny outside. And then they'll be like, I'm going to go hiking. I can't wait to go outside and play with my friends. And then they'll go take a shower. And then when they come back out of the shower, it's raining, and now they'll be sad and frustrated and irritated. This is the conditioned feelings. The mind's going up and down and up and down. That is shaken up. An enlightened being, they're already happy before they even wake up in the morning. And then they see that it's sunny outside. It's like, all right, sweet. I'm going to go hiking today. This is going to be really great. And now you go take a shower. And then when you come out, you notice that it's raining. And you're like, all right, well, I guess I'm not going to go hiking. Maybe I'll stay home and read a book. Maybe I'll go to the mall. Maybe I'll invite my friends over so that they can maybe cook some dinner. We can have a good time, right? You can maintain your happiness because your happiness wasn't based on any condition. So in the enlightened mind, you're beyond conditioned feelings. You're experiencing the unconditioned mental states of peace and calm, serenity, contentedness, and joy, where the mind is just always joyful and always happy. And there's no condition that caused that to occur, so therefore it is a permanent mental state. So some people here, they refer to this as suffering. Suffering explains the painful feelings really well. but it doesn't explain the pleasant feelings or the neither painful nor pleasant feelings, right? Like if your boss came into your office and said they were going to give you a raise of $20,000 because you've been doing so good at work and you got really excited about that, you probably wouldn't say you were suffering, right? Or that person that came and sat close to you on public transportation and you were experiencing this dissatisfaction or uncomfortableness, you probably wouldn't say you were suffering in that situation. So the word suffering only explains 1/3 of what the Buddha was actually teaching. That means you'd be missing 66% of his teachings. And if you're missing 66% of a teacher's teachings, how could you ever get to the ultimate goal, which is enlightenment? So it's important to be able to understand the full spectrum of feelings and emotions that the Buddha is helping you to be able to understand about the unenlightened mind. And the word discontent, discontented, and discontentedness helps you to be able to understand that. So that's why I use that word, because it describes the mind being shaken up. So these pleasant feelings that are conditional, those are just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. Whereas if you allow your mind to get conditional happiness, that means that when that condition is no longer met, your mind is going to end up in the sadness or the frustration. So what the unenlightened mind is doing is saying, if my mom and dad do this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if my boss does this, if I have this much money in the bank, if I have this kind of house and this kind of car, if the weather is this, then I will be happy. So your happiness in the unenlightened state is actually shrinking because it's only conditional. But by the time you get to the enlightened mental state, you're experiencing unconditioned happiness, where your mind can just be happy no matter what. If it's raining, if it's sunny, doesn't matter, right? If your bank account balance is up here or it's down here, you can still maintain your joy and your happiness. So this is the second universal truth of discontentedness. And this helps you to be able to see that pleasant feelings are just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. There's plenty of happiness in the enlightened mental state, but it's unconditioned happiness instead of this conditional happiness. Then there's the universal truth of non-self. The universal truth of non-self is actually a solution to one of the problems that the Buddha discovered in the mind. There's these 10 individual pollutions that the Buddha discovered, and he calls them fetters. The 10 fetters, or these 10 pollutions that need to be eliminated from the mind in order to experience enlightenment. And he calls them fetters because during his lifetime, if they were trying to keep you confined to a certain area, like a prisoner, they would attach a fetter around your ankle. This was a shackle and a chain and a ball, and then they would keep you out on a field. So when he discovers these pollutions in the mind, he refers to them as fetters because it's keeping the mind trapped or confined. It's bound up, where it keeps experiencing anger and sadness and frustration over and over and over again. But just like a prisoner, if you release the shackle from the ankle, the person is free. The same thing is true about the mind. If you get rid of these 10 fetters, now the mind is free. It's liberated. So I'll explain to you guys the problem that the universal truth of non-self is solving, and then I'll explain to you what the universal truth of non-self is. The very first fetter is called personal existence view. This is where the mind's clinging to this body or this mind as who you are as a person, where the mind's clinging to a self-image or a self-identity. It's confused. It thinks that this is who you are as a person. And now the mind wants to be perceived by others in a certain way. And it can only be happy if you're being perceived that way. So if you've ever spilled something on your clothing and you were embarrassed in that situation, when you were in maybe a social situation, this is your personal existence view, that the mind's clinging to this body, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. The mind is confused. It thinks that this body is who you are as a person, and now it can only be happy if you're experiencing what you want and you're being perceived the way you want to be perceived. If you've ever maybe looked in a mirror and you saw a pimple or a wrinkle or a mole or a gray hair, or you started losing your hair and you were shaken up by this, this was your personal existence view, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way, and you could only feel happy if you're being perceived that way. So the mind will cling to this self-image, but it will also cling to a self-identity, like maybe your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. Your mind can cling to any number of things as part of your identity. And now you can only be happy when that's intact. So for example, if you were in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend and you thought, I am a boyfriend, I am a girlfriend. Well, you might have a certain amount of comfort when you guys were together. But when you guys broke up, your mind didn't identify with I am single. So now you might have felt like you wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship because the mind felt like that's what was going to solve it. Or say you've been in a restaurant where maybe you were hearing somebody talk very fondly of the nationality that you have. Maybe they're talking about Americans or Chinese people or Lithuanians or Mexicans or some other nationality. Maybe you're Spanish or Indian or some other nationality that you're holding on in your mind. And they're talking very fondly. And you think, wow, they're talking about me, and you're so happy. But then it's only a matter of time before two tables over, somebody says something degrading and disparaging about the nationality that you're holding on to in your mind as your identity. And now you're frustrated or angry or irritated. So if you're clinging to this body, this self-image, or this self-identity, the mind, wanting this to be permanent, now in a situation where you hear either agreeable or disagreeable things, you're going to either experience pleasant feelings, conditional pleasant feelings, or conditional painful feelings. And now the mind can't be permanently peaceful and permanently joyful. So the universal truth of non-self is eliminating that. It's helping you to be able to see that there is no self, that this body nor this mind is who you are as a person. But the problem is that the mind's going to cling to this and hold on to this and want this to be permanent. So you need to be able to peer through this and see that your mind has this confusion or this delusion or this misunderstanding, thinking that this body or this mind is you. And the way that you can independently verify this is think about this. Think about yourself when you were a child, when you were a teenager, early adulthood, and then now. Think about your personality and your character and who you think you are as a person. Has it been the same through all those periods of time, or has it been constantly changing? It's been changing, right? Here's another way. If your arm is amputated and you only have one hand and one arm, are you less of a person? You think you're less of a person if you only have one hand and one arm? You do? Okay. Well, not everybody thinks that way. Some people think that, no, I'm not less of a person. I just have less use of a hand and an arm, right? So if you think that this body is you, then you might answer that as, yeah, I'm less of a person because I have less body, so there's less me. But if you can see intellectually that you are not less of a person just because you have less use of a hand and an arm, now you can see that the mind intellectually understands that this body is not you. That in the heat of the moment, when somebody says something either positive or negative to you, then now you experience discontent feelings. But if you can intellectually understand that this body is not you, then you can see this confusion that the mind has. Because when somebody says something and says, wow, you're so handsome, or you're so beautiful, that shirt really brings out the color of your eyes, you get so excited and happy. But it's only a matter of time before somebody says, where did you get that haircut? Are you really going to go outside looking like that? Right? And now you feel frustrated or angry or something like that. Right? So you need to be able to peer through this and see that this is just confusion that the mind has. But the thing is that the mind's going to cling to this body and it's going to cling to this mind, thinking that this is who you are as a person. So the Buddha isn't denying the fact that there is a being in existence. He's just sharing with you that this body and this mind that has come together, and now we call that a person, that it would be unwise to allow the mind to cling to that, craving for it to be permanent, clinging to it, wanting it to be permanent because it's constantly changing. Okay, so I'm going to stop here and see if you guys have any questions on any of these three universal truths, because these are building blocks to help you understand the Four Noble Truths, and you need to be able to understand this in order to be able to understand what's causing your discontent feelings. So remember, here you guys can use the microphones, and online you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom, unmute your microphone, and ask any and all questions that you like. So let me know if you guys have questions here. Okay, it looks like we have a question coming in on Zoom. I think your name's pronounced Ruta. Hello, David. Thank you for sharing the teachings. I find them very useful in my life. I was trying to understand the permanent self part better and would like your help. If there's no permanent self, then who or what is being reincarnated in another life when unenlightened human beings dies? And is that the same each time when the same being is reincarnated? Okay, I'll help you with that. So this word reincarnation isn't actually the best word to use for what the Buddha was describing. The Buddha was describing, in what's written in the Pali Canon, is the word samsara. This is the word that's being used. And most often people translate this to the cycle of rebirth. But you do occasionally hear people talk about reincarnation. And neither of these words are actually appropriate, because when you look at how the Buddha describes this continuous cycle, it's actually a new existence every single time. It's a new mind and it's a new body every single time. So even though people have been translating it as the cycle of rebirth or reincarnation, it's better to think about it as the cycle of new existence, because there isn't actually anything that's being reborn from one existence to the other. It's a brand new existence every single time. There's cravings in residual memories from the previous mind that make its way into this mind. It's kind of like two cardboard boxes. These two cardboard boxes are different size, different color, different shape, different texture. But at the end of cardboard box A's life, when it's deteriorating, if there's contents in that cardboard box, it needs to find a new cardboard box. And now it goes into cardboard box B. But cardboard box B, representing the mind, is a completely new mind. It's a completely new body, right? It just has these residual memories and cravings from the previous life. So it's better to think about it as the cycle of new existence. And I talk about this at the very end of the book in the frequently asked questions section. If you'd like to read that, that'll actually help you some more, because I go into more detail there. So there isn't anything actually being reborn. So that's why there is no self. And sometimes people talk about a soul related to the teachings of the Buddha. He never actually taught that. That's a big misunderstanding, because the whole idea of a soul actually conflicts with the universal truth of impermanence, and it conflicts with the universal truth of non-self. You can see in his teachings that he never talks about a soul. He leaves that as an undeclared teaching. So you can see how the universal truth of impermanence and the universal truth of non-self are in sync with each other, because the Buddha is basically saying to you that this body is not permanent, this mind is not permanent, and anything that you cling and hold on to as who you think you are, you're just going to be feeling like less of a person or unwhole when all that stuff changes. So there is no permanent self, there is no self, and there actually is nothing being reincarnated or reborn. Instead, it's the cycle of rebirth where it's the cycle of new existence where each time there's a new existence with a new body and a new mind every single time. That's a common question that people ask. So thank you for asking that. Okay, I don't see any other questions anywhere. Okay, so one more thing to understand, and then we can learn the Four Noble Truths. This word craving, desire, attachment, expectations, wants, holding, grasping, clinging. This is how the mind is longing, yearning for something, chasing after the objects of its affection, pulling towards the objects of its affection, thinking the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. So the mind chases it and chases it and chases it and chases it. It's kind of like an unquenchable thirst that the mind has. Thinking something external is going to provide lasting satisfaction, so it chases after it. So the mind might chase after money, or it might chase after a new boyfriend or girlfriend, or a bigger house or a bigger car. It's just chasing and chasing and chasing. And if the mind gets what it wants, it gets happy. And if it doesn't, it gets sad or frustrated. That's what you're going to see in the Four Noble Truths. So if you've ever been in the mall and you saw a brand new pair of shoes, or a piece of jewelry or maybe a new phone or a computer, and you're like, oh, I just got to have that. I can't wait to get that. Oh, I just want it so bad. That's your mind craving, desiring, longing, yearning. It's not the object itself that is the craving, desire, attachment. It's the way that the mind is longing, yearning for it, that it's pulling towards this object. So you guys know what I'm talking about? Have you experienced this in your mind? Yeah? With your mind pulling towards things? Okay. So now that we understand all of these things, now let's understand the Four Noble Truths. This is where you can have a real breakthrough to understanding what it is that's causing these feelings. Because in 4 simple statements, you're going to understand the problem, the cause, the elimination, and the path forward. In the first Noble Truth, the Buddha is explaining what is the problem that everyone is experiencing. Everyone in the unenlightened state is going to experience discontentedness, those conditioned feelings. Pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. This is where your mind's shaken up. And now when your mind's all shaken up, you can't make wise decisions, and it's going to produce unwholesome results. What's causing that is in the second Noble Truth. Discontentedness is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. Okay, I'm going to say that a few times. I'm going to give you some examples. These pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. The discontentedness is caused by craving, desire, attachment. The mind longing, yearning, chasing after the objects of its affection. Wants things to be permanent, but yet everything in the world is impermanent. Okay, so here's some examples. Think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you got together with, where when you first got together, you were so happy and so excited. That's because you had somebody new in your life. Your mind was getting its cravings fulfilled, that you had somebody showing you affection. They were inviting you to the movies, to the dinner. You were going to the park, taking nice walks together. You were having great conversations. You might have even been having intimate contact where you were having sex together. This is the pleasant feelings because the mind's cravings are getting fulfilled based on the condition that I have this boyfriend or girlfriend. But then you guys broke up. And when you broke up, you were angry or sad or frustrated or lonely or bored, or you started missing this person. This wasn't your love that was causing that. That was the mind holding on and craving permanence, wanting this person to be in your life permanently, when in reality, this relationship was always impermanent. The mind just didn't understand that. It didn't have that wisdom, because even if you were together for the rest of your life, more likely than not, one of you would have died first, and this relationship would have been over. You can see this if you've ever had someone close to you that has died, like grandma, grandpa, mom or dad, brothers and sisters. As these people die, you might be grieving or sorrowful or sad. You're not a bad person because this is happening. This is just what the unenlightened mind does, that it craves permanence. As long as it gets what it wants, which is grandma and grandpa to be alive, it'll be happy and excited about that. But when the mind's not getting what it wants, it gets angry, sad, frustrated, or grieve or sorrowful or some other discontent feeling. That's the mind holding on and craving permanence, when in reality, everybody in our life is impermanent. You might have seen this at a wedding. If you went to a wedding and somebody was getting married, you might have seen them going off in the world with somebody else. And now mom and dad, brothers and sisters, grandma and grandpa are crying and grieving. Well, it's not your love that's causing this, because love doesn't cause painful feelings. That's what people think in the unenlightened state because of the lack of wisdom. But actually what's causing that is the mind is holding on. And now you see your brother and sister getting married and they're leaving. And the mind thinks, oh my gosh, they're not mine. They don't belong to me. Someone else is taking them away from me. This is the mind holding on and craving permanence. Here's an example that doesn't involve relationships, and sometimes people can see this a lot easier through this example. Let's just say you bought a brand new car, and you were so excited about that brand new car, and you drove it and you park it at a store, and then you go inside and you come out and there's a scratch on your car. You might be upset or frustrated or angry. It's not the scratch that's causing that, and it's not the person who scratched your car. It's the mind craving permanence, that it wants this car to look permanently beautiful, when in reality, this car is not permanent. The paint's going to fade, the tires are going to need to be changed, the upholstery is going to get ripped and torn. It's only a matter of time before this car starts to deteriorate. So the mind is craving permanence while it's living in an impermanent world. The mind doesn't like change. So one of the ways to say this is that the mind craves permanence. Another way to say it is it does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. This is why if you look in your life and all the times you were struggling, having the most difficulties, this is when things were changing. Maybe you were changing living locations, you were changing jobs, maybe your relationships were changing. This was a real struggle for the mind because it doesn't like change. So don't believe what it is that I'm sharing here. You can't believe any of these teachings because with belief, you don't know what's true or false. You can independently verify this for yourself by looking at your own life. Look at a recent situation where you've been angry or sad or frustrated. It could have been this morning or yesterday or last week. Look at that situation with these fresh eyes. What was it that your mind was longing, yearning for? What did you want? What did you expect? And if you would have gotten what you wanted, you would have been happy, excited, or elated. But because the mind didn't get what it wanted, it got angry or sad or frustrated. If you can't see this for yourself, let me know, because I will help you. There's been plenty of people over the years that have needed help with this, because what I'm teaching you is that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. It's not the outside world. Because one time I had somebody call me and they said, David, I need your help. And I said, okay, what is it? They said, I know you teach that it's my own mind that's causing these feelings, but I'm sure it's my wife who's causing these feelings and I need your help. I said, okay, what's going on? They said, well, I went to work the other day and my house looked beautiful. And when I came home, she had a craft project all over the house. And I got angry and frustrated about this. How did my mind cause this? I wasn't even there. She's the one who messed up the house. Didn't she cause me to be angry or frustrated? And what I share with them is, no, your wife didn't actually cause this. It was your own mind, because your mind was craving permanence. You thought that when you came home, the house was going to look exactly the same as it did when you went to work. And this is the mind craving permanence. So you need to be able to see this for yourself and have this breakthrough, because what the mind's going to do when you think that it's someone else that's causing these feelings is you're going to tend to push those people away. The mind's going to become unskillful, where you're going to push people away out of your life. This is called aversion. Or you might be bitter and harsh and hostile to people with your intentions, your speech, and your actions. Or you might put your expectations on people, where you try to control or pressure them to do things your way. This is the mind trying to get its cravings fulfilled. So if you keep pushing people away, or being bitter, harsh, and hostile to them, or you're putting your expectations on people, you can never be harmonious in the world, because it's only a matter of time before you encounter someone who does things differently than you because of impermanence. But the unenlightened mind is craving permanence. And there's only one person in the world that actually does things your way 100% of the time. Do you know who this person is that does things your way 100% of the time? Yourself, exactly. You're the only person. So if you can only live harmoniously with people who do things your way, then you can only live with yourself. That's it. And if you can only love people and like people who do things your way, you can only love yourself. And you might even have trouble loving that person from time to time, right? Because you put expectations on yourself, right? So you can break through this and you can see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, and then you can actually eliminate them. That's what the third noble truth is explaining for you, that the elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating cravings, desires, attachments. If you eliminate this longing, yearning, and chasing after the objects of your affection, you can actually eliminate the discontent feelings. Because if you understand that craving, desire, attachment is the cause of discontent feelings, well, if you eliminate the cause, you'll eliminate the effect. And you can independently verify this one too. Because think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend that you were angry or frustrated or bored or lonely or missing that person. At some point, your mind let go, right? we're thinking, if he wants to be with someone else, so be it. And you let go. Or you're like, if she wants to move to a different part of the world, so be it. In your mind, let go. And that's where your peace and your joy came back. So when you train your mind to let go, this is what's actually going to help you to be able to get to the complete peace and complete joy. But the unenlightened mind doesn't know how to do this. And that's where the fourth noble truth comes in. The path to eliminating discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. This is the complete perfect plan that's going to guide you in how to train your mind to get to peace and joy. And it starts with right view. What right view is to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, that it's not the outside world, that it's the mind's craving, desire, attachment. What wrong view would be to blame other people for the feelings that you're experiencing. As long as you're blaming other people for the feelings that you're having, you'll never actually be able to eliminate them. So what I encourage you to do is now and forever, start looking inward to try to discover what is it that your mind's longing, yearning for. Because I'm sure you've been in knockdown, drag-out fights and arguments where you've been trying to convince other people to stop doing what they're doing, or else you're going to continue to get angry or frustrated. But every single time you've ever been angry, ever since you were born, it's your own mind's craving, desire, attachment. Now, somebody else could have been doing something that's unwise, but that's not what's causing the mind to be frustrated or angry. It's the craving for permanence. So we're not talking about what's wise or unwise here. We're just talking about what's causing the mind to experience these discontent feelings. And you can start looking inward to discover that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, that it's the mind's longing, yearning. And now you can actually get free of that through training of the mind. So this is everything that I have to share with you guys for today. Let me know if you guys have questions on these Four Noble Truths, particularly the second noble truth, because if you can't independently verify this, then you're not going to be able to cultivate the wisdom to be able to see the truth that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, and you wouldn't be able to actually eliminate them if you don't understand what's causing it. So remember, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and unmute your mic, or here you guys have the microphones if you like. So it looks like there's another question coming in Zoom. So here it looks like Bernardo has a question. Hi, David. Thank you. If we are not the mind nor the body, what are we? Individual instances of one being? Thanks. Okay, so yes, this was part of that last question. I didn't answer it as well. So when an individual learns the universal truth of non-self, that they are not the body and they are not the mind, then typically what the mind will say, well, if I'm not the body and I'm not the mind, then what am I? Right? This is the mind still grasping. It's still trying to identify something as who you are as a person. The mind's trying to cling to something, and none of these things are you. So as long as the mind keeps thinking, well, what am I? The mind's still grasping. It's still trying to hold on to something when none of these things are you. There is no self. But the mind, with its lack of training, is constantly grasping and trying to hold on to something as who you think you are. When we get to chapter 16 of this book, I'm going to teach you more in depth the universal truth of non-self, and I'm going to teach personal existence view, but then I'm going to teach you the solutions of how to actually proactively eliminate personal existence view. But until you get to that point, you need to be working on building up the Eightfold Path. If you don't build up the Eightfold Path, those tools and techniques that I'm going to teach you in chapter 16 won't be as effective. So it's helpful between now and the next 12 weeks to be able to build up your Eightfold Path. And it's going to take you longer than 12 weeks to build up the Eightfold Path, but you need to be able to commit this to memory. Between chapter 4 and chapter 5, that's the Eightfold Path. And now you're going to need to be able to build that up and really start practicing it on a daily basis so that then you can learn how to eradicate this personal existence view. Because otherwise the mind's going to keep trying to grasp and try to grab onto something as who you think you are, when none of these things are actually you. The mind can even grab onto decisions. Like if you've used drugs and alcohol in the past, sometimes people think, I am an alcoholic or I am an addict, right? That's not true. True reality is that this being chose to use drugs and alcohol in the past, but I don't have to adopt that label in my mind as who I think I am as a person. Same thing like me sitting here sharing these teachings of the Buddha. I can share these teachings of the Buddha, performing this role as a Buddhist teacher without allowing my mind to adopt that identity of who I think I am as a person. Because being a Buddhist teacher, even though I'm going to do it to the end of this life, is not permanent. At some point, it's going to come to an end. And if somebody says something fond about Buddhist teachers, I'd get all happy and excited because I think that's who I am. But if somebody says something negative and degrading about Buddhist teachers, I would experience frustration and agitation or annoyance. But by not adopting that in the mind as who you think you are, now you can be peaceful. Because when somebody says something degrading and disrespectful, they're not talking about me because there's no me here. But as long as your mind clings to a me, you'll experience the frustration, agitation, the discontent feelings. All right. Okay, I don't see any other questions anywhere. So what I'm going to do then is just end here by thanking all of you guys. Thank you here at the temple, and thank you everybody online for joining. Next week, I'm going to be in chapter 5, which is titled The Eightfold Path, the path for all humans to enlightenment. We're going to walk through that using the words of the Buddha so that you can see this entire path. And then that way you can understand the training that you need to employ over a consistent long-term period to be able to transform the mind. But it all starts with this it all starts with the Four Noble Truths as right view, because that's the foundation, is understanding that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And then next week, we're going to go deeper into this and give you the entire plan of how to completely transform your mind. So thank you all for joining, and perhaps I'll see you guys in a future class. Have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. We'll see you next time. Sawadee ka.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.